The Galactic Academy, an interstellar institution known for training the finest military minds in the universe, had called for its annual planetary conquest simulation. It was a test of tactical acumen, a measure of which species could develop the most effective strategies in the heat of simulated battle. The prize? Prestige and recognition among the galactic elite. The challenge is to conquer a heavily fortified alien planet within 48 hours. This year's simulation was different. The Academy had programmed a near-impenetrable defense system into the simulated planet, using a combination of advanced technology, hostile terrain, and strategically placed strongholds. This was meant to test the limits of the cadets from various species. The planet's atmosphere was thick with electromagnetic storms, and its surface was riddled with deadly volcanic regions, providing natural defenses as intimidating as the artificial ones. The teams were comprised of cadets from different planets across the galaxy, representing their home worlds with pride. The Circans, with their brute strength, were known for storming enemy lines head-on. The Diluvians, experts in aquatic warfare, had developed sophisticated weapons that could manipulate water. The Eridans, technologically superior and intelligent, focused on cyber warfare and defensive shields. Each species believed their approach would give them the upper hand. Among these mighty teams stood the Humans Earth's cadets, a small group of 5, led by Captain Zara Daniels, an ambitious and quick-thinking strategist known for her unconventional tactics. Unlike their competitors, who had been given specialized weapons and resources, the humans received the most basic of tools: standard laser rifles, a rudimentary map, and an outdated communication device. It was as if the Academy was testing not just their skill, but their very resilience. As the teams prepared for the mission, the humans found themselves the subject of quiet mockery. The other cadets couldn't comprehend how Earth, a comparatively young race in the galactic community, could ever compete in such a scenario. The Circan leader, Commander Tolak, with his muscular frame towering over the humans, laughed as he passed them in the hangar. "Hope you brought your boots, humans. You'll need them to walk back in shame," he growled, his deep voice resonating through the air. The other alien cadets snickered, their confidence apparent as they checked their advanced weapons. Zara and her team ignored the remarks. They weren't here for ego or bravado, they were here to win. But Zara knew the odds weren't in their favor. Their equipment was outdated, and their numbers were fewer compared to the larger teams. Still, she had a plan, and it hinged on outsmarting the competition rather than outgunning them. As they boarded their transport vessel, Zara gathered her team: Lieutenant Marcus O'Reilly, the team's tech specialist Sergeant Linda Voss, their sharpshooter Private Ethan Wu, a reconnaissance expert, and Corporal Maria Salazar, a demolitionist. Each of them had been handpicked for this mission, and while their skill sets were diverse, they all shared one trait: adaptability. "We're not here to play their game," Zara began, her voice steady yet firm. "We're not here to fight a war the way they expect us to. Let them use brute force. Let them rely on their fancy tech. We'll be using our minds." The team nodded in agreement, their confidence in Zara's leadership unwavering. The transport vessel rattled as it entered the atmosphere of the simulated planet. Through the viewport, they could see the hostile environment awaiting them. Dark, swirling clouds filled the sky, and bolts of electromagnetic energy crackled across the horizon. The ground below was jagged and uneven, with towering volcanoes spewing ash into the air. The surface was a nightmare to navigate, and the alien strongholds were nestled deep within this chaotic landscape. "All right, team," Zara said as they descended toward the planet's surface. "We have 48 hours, but if we execute our plan correctly, we'll need far less." Their mission objective was simple on paper but nearly impossible in execution: infiltrate the main stronghold, disable the planetary defense grid, and raise their flag at the central command tower. But what made the mission challenging was that the stronghold was protected by multiple layers of automated defense systems, from energy shields to advanced drones patrolling the perimeter. No one had ever completed this simulation in less than 30 hours, and many teams never finished at all. As soon as their transport touched down, Zara's team sprang into action. They were dropped in a rocky canyon, miles away from the primary target. Above them, dark clouds crackled with energy, making communication with orbital support unreliable. The other teams had likely been deployed closer to the target, thanks to their advanced technologies and superior tactical resources. But Zara knew that wouldn't matter if her plan worked. "Marcus, I need a full scan of the area," Zara ordered. Marcus pulled out a handheld scanner and began mapping the terrain. The scanner beeped as it detected multiple heat signatures, likely enemy drones patrolling the canyon. "We've got company already," he reported. "Looks like automated drones. They'll be all over the place, scanning for intruders." Zara nodded. "All right, we're sticking to the plan. We don't engage unless absolutely necessary. Ethan, take point and scout ahead. Marcus, keep that scanner going. Linda, keep your rifle ready for any unexpected surprises. Maria, you're with me." The team moved with precision and caution, staying low as they navigated the jagged rocks and narrow paths of the canyon. Above them, the occasional drone whirred by, its sensors scanning the ground below. Ethan scouted ahead, using his keen eye for detail to spot potential threats. The others followed, their senses heightened as they approached the outer perimeter of the enemy's territory. As they moved deeper into the canyon, the sound of distant explosions echoed through the air. No doubt, the other teams were already engaging in full-scale assaults on the enemy strongholds, using their superior firepower to try and breach the defenses. Zara smiled to herself. That was exactly what the enemy expected. But her team wasn't going to play by those rules. "Hold up," Ethan whispered as they reached the top of a ridge overlooking a large valley. Below them, they could see one of the enemy's outer defense posts. It was a towering structure, heavily fortified with automated turrets and shield generators. Patrol drones circled the perimeter, scanning for any signs of intrusion. Zara studied the layout through her binoculars. The post was well guarded, but it wasn't their primary target. Taking it down would waste precious time and resources. Instead, she had something else in mind. "We're not taking that out," she said, turning to her team. "We're going around it. Marcus, I need you to jam their sensors for a few minutes. Long enough for us to slip by undetected." Marcus nodded and pulled out a small device from his pack. He tinkered with it for a moment before activating it. A low hum filled the air as the device began emitting a signal that disrupted the drone's scanning frequencies. "Jamming in effect," Marcus confirmed. "We've got 3 minutes before they reboot. Move, now," Zara ordered. The team quickly but quietly moved around the perimeter of the post, staying out of sight as they passed under the patrol drones. Zara's heart pounded in her chest, but her focus remained sharp. She knew that time was of the essence. If they were detected, it would bring the full force of the enemy's defenses down on them. As they cleared the post and made their way deeper into enemy territory, the terrain became even more treacherous. The ground was uneven, and the electromagnetic storms grew stronger, making their equipment flicker with static interference. But Zara remained calm. This was all part of the plan. After what felt like hours, they reached the edge of the canyon and found themselves standing on a cliff overlooking the enemy's central command tower. It was an imposing structure, surrounded by layers of energy shields and heavy artillery. This was their target, the heart of the planetary defense grid. Zara crouched down and pulled out her binoculars again. She studied the tower's defenses, noting the patterns of the shield rotations and the movement of the guard drones. It was a formidable fortress, and a direct assault would be suicide. But Zara wasn't planning on a direct assault. "We're not going in guns blazing," she said quietly to her team. "We're going to shut it down from the inside." She pulled out a small data chip from her pocket and handed it to Marcus. "This is our key. Once we're inside the tower, you'll use this to disable the shields and defense systems. Ethan, you'll find us a way in. Linda, cover our backs. Maria, get the explosives ready. We'll need them for the final push." The team nodded, their faces serious but determined. They knew what was at stake, and they trusted Zara's leadership. The impossible mission had just begun. As Zara crouched on the cliff overlooking the enemy's central command tower, her mind was racing through every detail of their plan. The air crackled with energy from the electromagnetic storms overhead, and the harsh landscape of the simulated planet stretched out before her. The towering structure, with its layers of energy shields and automated defenses, looked like an impenetrable fortress to anyone without a plan. But Zara had one, and it was about to be put into motion. The team gathered around her, waiting for her next move. Ethan, their reconnaissance expert, was already scanning the perimeter, his sharp eyes picking out weaknesses in the enemy's patrol patterns. Marcus, the tech specialist, was busy calibrating his jamming device for the next phase of the mission. Linda, their sharpshooter, kept her rifle ready, scanning the surroundings for any unexpected threats. Maria, the demolition expert, was silently preparing the explosives they would need for their final push. Zara took a deep breath and spoke in a low, calm voice. "This is it. We're going to break into that tower, disable the defense grid, and plant our flag at the command center. But we need to move fast. The other teams are still throwing themselves at the outer defenses, which means the enemy is distracted. We have a small window of opportunity, and we're going to take it." Ethan crouched beside her, pointing toward a narrow maintenance tunnel on the far side of the command tower. "That's our way in. It's not heavily guarded because it's too small for a direct assault, but it connects to the inner corridors. We can use it to bypass most of the outer defenses." Zara nodded. "Good work. Marcus, you'll lead the way and handle the security systems. Ethan, you stay on point and make sure we don't run into any surprises. Linda, keep watch and take out any patrols that get too close. Maria, keep those explosives ready for when we hit the central reactor. Let's move." With that, the team silently descended the rocky cliff, moving with the precision of trained soldiers. The wind howled around them, carrying the scent of sulfur from the distant volcanic activity, but Zara's focus never wavered. This was what they had trained for, and they were about to prove that Earth's cadets could achieve the impossible. As they approached the maintenance tunnel, Zara's heart raced. This was the most vulnerable part of their mission. If they were detected now, the full might of the tower's defenses would come crashing down on them. But Marcus quickly went to work, using his handheld device to disrupt the security sensors guarding the entrance. "Got it," Marcus whispered after a few tense moments. "We're clear. Let's go." One by one, the team slipped into the tunnel, their footsteps barely making a sound on the cold, metallic floor. The tunnel was narrow and dimly lit, with flickering lights overhead casting eerie shadows on the walls. The air was thick with the hum of machinery, and the distant sound of drone patrols echoed through the corridor. As they made their way deeper into the complex, Zara's mind remained sharp, calculating every possible outcome. She knew they had to move quickly, but they couldn't afford any mistakes. The tunnel eventually opened up into a series of narrow corridors, which, according to their intelligence, led directly to the inner sanctum of the tower. Ethan held up a hand, signaling the team to stop. "Patrol up ahead," he whispered. Linda was already in position, her rifle aimed down the corridor. Through her scope, she could see the faint outline of an enemy drone patrol. It was a small, spherical machine with glowing red sensors scanning the hallway. If it detected them, it would immediately trigger an alarm and summon reinforcements. "Hold your fire," Zara whispered. "Let it pass." They held their breath as the drone whirred closer, its sensors sweeping back and forth. The seconds felt like hours as the drone drifted past their hiding spot, completely unaware of their presence. Once it was clear, the team continued forward, moving with the same silent efficiency. Finally, they reached the central hub of the tower, where the corridors branched off in multiple directions. At the center of the hub was a massive vault door, protected by an energy shield and several layers of security protocols. Beyond that door was the command center, the heart of the planetary defense grid. Zara turned to Marcus. "This is your moment. Can you get us through?" Marcus grinned. "Piece of cake. Give me a few minutes." He knelt down beside the control panel, plugging in his device and beginning the intricate process of hacking through the tower's security systems. As he worked, the team spread out, keeping watch for any signs of enemy activity. The electromagnetic interference made it difficult to rely on their scanners, but they remained vigilant, knowing that a single misstep could cost them everything. Minutes passed, each one filled with mounting tension. Marcus's fingers flew across the control panel, bypassing firewalls and deactivating security protocols one by one. Finally, with a soft beep, the energy shield around the vault door flickered and then disappeared. "We're in," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. Zara gave a nod of approval. "Let's finish this." The team approached the vault door, which slowly slid open with a deep, mechanical groan. Inside was the command center, a cavernous room filled with towering consoles, holographic displays, and rows of blinking lights. At the far end of the room, surrounded by glowing blue energy fields, was the central control unit for the planetary defense grid. This was their target. Maria set to work immediately, planting explosives at key points around the room. The plan was simple: they would disable the grid manually, and then blow the reactor to ensure that no one could re-engage it. But as they moved through the room, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The room was too quiet, too still. "Ethan," she whispered, "check the perimeter. Something doesn't feel right." Ethan nodded and disappeared into the shadows, his movements as silent as a ghost. As he scouted the edges of the room, Zara and Marcus approached the central control unit. Marcus plugged his device into the console and began downloading the data they needed to disable the grid. "Just a few more seconds," Marcus muttered, his eyes focused on the rapidly scrolling lines of code on the screen. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the room, and the lights shifted to a flashing red. Zara's heart sank. They had been detected. "Ethan, report." Zara called out over the comm, "Incoming hostiles." Ethan's voice crackled through the static. "Multiple drone units heading our way." "Linda, get ready to cover us." "Maria, how much longer on the explosives?" Zara barked. "Almost done," Maria replied, her fingers moving quickly to arm the last charge. The sound of metallic footsteps echoed through the corridors as the enemy drones closed in on their position. Linda took her position near the entrance, her rifle trained on the doorway, ready to engage the incoming threat. Zara's mind raced, calculating their options. They were so close, just a few more minutes, and they could complete the mission. "We hold them off as long as we can," Zara shouted, her voice cutting through the alarm. "Marcus, stay on that console. We can't leave until the grid is down." The first wave of drones burst through the doorway, their glowing red sensors locking onto the team. Linda opened fire, her shots precise and deadly, taking down several drones in quick succession. But more kept coming, their relentless advance pushing closer to the command center. "Zara, we're outnumbered," Linda called out, reloading her rifle. Zara gritted her teeth. They couldn't afford to retreat now. If they left the grid intact, the other teams would be overwhelmed, and the mission would be a failure. "Just a few more seconds," Marcus called out, his fingers moving frantically over the console. Zara fired her own weapon at the advancing drones, her shots finding their mark, but the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. Ethan and Maria joined the fight, but the drones were closing in fast. "Marcus, we need that grid down now," Zara yelled. "I'm almost there," Marcus shouted back, his voice tense. The room shook as the explosives Maria had planted began to detonate, one by one, taking out key systems and destabilizing the tower's defenses. The drones wavered for a moment, their systems briefly disrupted by the explosions, giving the team a small window of opportunity. "Got it," Marcus cried out. "The grid is down." Zara didn't waste a second. "Fall back to the exit. We're done here." The team retreated toward the maintenance tunnel as the remaining drones scrambled to regain control. With the planetary defense grid offline and the tower's systems in disarray, the mission was complete. They had done it. As they raced through the tunnel, the sound of distant explosions echoed behind them. The final charge Maria had set at the reactor went off, sending a massive shockwave through the complex. The tower crumbled, its once imposing structure reduced to rubble. When they emerged from the tunnel, the team collapsed on the rocky ground, exhausted but triumphant. The sky above was still filled with swirling storms, but for the first time, Zara allowed herself to breathe a sigh of relief. They had completed the mission in record time, less than an hour. As the dust settled, Zara stood up and looked back at the ruined tower in the distance. "Mission accomplished," she said, her voice filled with quiet pride. The Galactic Academy had set them an impossible task, but Earth's cadets had not only completed it, they had redefined what was possible.